Are we live, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Good to go?
Yes, sir.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to welcome everybody to today's meeting of the Health, Education, Neighborhoods, Parks, Arts, and Rivers Committee. It is just after 1 p.m., and this meeting is now called to order. I believe we have Councilmember O'Farrell and Councilmember Price will be joining. I'd like to note that the audio for this meeting is broadcast live on the internet at www.lacity.org. Oh, thank you, Councilmember Price. .org/government/follow meetings/council-committee-meetings. The live audio can also be heard at 213-621-CITY or 818-904-9450 or 310-471-CITY. Members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 669-900-6833 and use meeting ID number 987-0899-4173. That is 987-0899-4173, and then press pound, then press pound again when prompted for a participant ID. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Councilmember David Drew.
Present.
Councilmember Micho Farrell.
Present.
Councilmember Karen Price.
Present.
And Mr. Chair, there's a new number that people can call in and a new meeting ID. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the call-in number is 669-254-5252. Again, that's 669-254-5252. And the meeting ID is 161-015-2287. Again, that's 161-015-2287. Then press pound twice.
So that's the new one. The previous one doesn't work.
Yes, sir. ITA issued a new meeting ID number for each committee.
Thank you, and I apologize to the public, and that is the new number and meeting ID number. So at this point, I want to open up the public comment and remind those who have called in to please state your name and the items you would like to speak on when you're prompted to do so. We'll open up the public comment. Andrew, are you taking over? Andrew?
Your name and which items you would like to speak on.
My name is Alexander Fuller, Lucky Alexander, and the item number to speak on is 200774.
You have 1 minute. You may begin.
Thank you. Hello, council members. My name is Lucky Alexander, and I strongly urge for your support for a permanent decorative street design on Hollywood Boulevard that was created in commemoration for this year's historic All Black Lives Matter March. The proposed permanent design will ensure that queer Black communities will remain visible for generations to come. As well, I'm the artist who is responsible for the design of the All Black Lives Matter street design. And the day before the march, I was able to be there and participate when it was painted. I also can't express enough the feeling that I felt seeing the art there and what it meant for me and my community. The pandemic has brought to the surface so many different fractures in our society, including the lack of inclusion of the LGBTQ community within the racial equity movement. And I feel that this was a step forward to equality for all folks among our society. So this street was so important to me and my wife that we chose to get married there to forever have that as part of our, and as well as a statement for our city. So
Thank you for your comment. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Sir, say your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Jasmine Ikela Creighton. I'm speaking on 20774, All Black Lives Matter.
You have 1 minute. You may begin.
Yes, my name is Jasmine Creighton, and I'm calling as a concerned citizen and a resident of Hollywood, California. I'm living blocks away from the particular signage, decorative signage on the street, and I'm asking that you keep it there as well for future generations, and so that anybody that comes to Hollywood and sees that can celebrate all lives, all black trans lives, all black trans queer lives, LGBT, across the board, QIA. So I hope that the council can find the time and the space and the energy and the support to continue to uplift and celebrate all queer black lives. All queer black lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Yeah, it's Eric Previn, and I would like to speak on, for the sake of simplicity, all of the items and general public comment. Are you accepting general public comments as well?
So you have 2 minutes for your items and 1 minute for your general public comment.
Okay, thank you. So the first item I'd like to speak about has to do with the neighborhood council election proposal that's been written up by Holly Walcott, the city clerk. Now, there's neighborhood council elections due to COVID. There's concern about vote by mail, one way to go, or actually at the facility, but not both, because they don't have the resources to do both. So that's a interesting call that somebody has to make. I think vote by mail is not going to be helpful to the community, and it is going to result, I guess, in a centralized outreach program where people get a bunch of spam email. I mean, what's been missing is the council members investing and updating the community with information about candidates. They just refuse to do it. It's just too bad, because it really makes a big difference and alerts the community that there's a little election. And the other problem with it is that, once you do establish a vote, we've had, as you'll recall, hashtag FBI was involved. They were cheating at the Studio City Neighborhood Council election in various ways. They were trying to disqualify people on false allegations by people who were immediately rewarded by City Hall, given positions on the Cannabis Commission and others for making false representations. But it didn't work because Dunn was exposed. And so now, getting to the finger pointing, Dunn and the city clerk are finger pointing all the time. One handles the one thing and the other handles the other, so that it's impossible to get to the bottom. And then subsequently, in a big boy election where the big boy and girl pants came on, the city clerk, unfortunately, who oversees the checking of who makes it onto the ballot, behaved in a way that could only be described as far-fetched. They invalidated, as the LA Times reported, 30% of the candidates based on voter registration.
Please launch your general public comment.
Yeah, which I'll just go on. Dean Logan threw his hands up in the air and said, I have nothing to do with it. I didn't check that material. That's the city clerk. Angle on the city clerk, who is obviously a puppet of the city council. Holly Walcott gets a lot of credit for being one of the most inhibitory public servants I've ever seen. She loves to pull agendas out of the room. She stands with pride next to Avak Kouatian, who, between the two of them, make it almost impossible to follow certain things as they get whipped out of his breast pocket and pinned up when there's a city hall meeting on the bulletin board. And then if you want to comment on it, Fauble simply strong arms you and says, no, we already took comment. I mean, this is a room that is founded on hypocrisy. The temple of democracy is the temple of hypocrisy. And we all know it, and Holly Walcott gets a lot of the credit. So I would simply say, take her off the neighborhood council election committee. it's not a good idea to have them involved. They play politics in an area and an environment, and this will pain them where they're supposed to be fair and square. And anybody who looks up. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Rob Kwan. I'd like to speak on items 2 and general public comment.
You have 1 minute for your item and 1 minute for general public comment. You may begin.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're, potentially going to just have all vote by mail for neighborhood council elections and not have in-person voting. As much as we have to adjust under COVID, it makes little sense to not have in-person voting, especially when some people don't have easy access to consistent mail. Neighborhood councils are supposed to be something that's open and accessible to the unhoused to vote in and run for office, and it really is going to have a disparate impact. And I also want to say, these are volunteers putting up a lot of their time to take a whole lot of abuse because y'all won't step up, and they, are unpaid, and it's just wholly inappropriate that, they're limited to a small, meager budget, and they have no actual power. Their big power is a community impact statement. And if you look at what's happening right now, City Attorney Mike Fuhrer, who is in his office, was raided by the FBI under FBI investigation. He is going systematically to neighborhood councils and intimidating them, bullying them, telling them they might face legal liability if they merely pass a community impact statement calling for investigations into our council members who've been arrested or under investigation and needing further investigation. You are the neighborhood council that is supposed to oversee our neighborhood councils. I think it's just absolutely fucking ridiculous that their mere voice to pass a resolution calling for investigations is being scrutinized and intimidated and blocked systematically by our city attorney. And apparently none of our council members care about that or want to speak up about it. So if this committee has any role in oversight over our neighborhood councils, if Mr. Rue is the reformer, then let's see some, actual oversight here. Bring Mike Fuhrer into this committee and let's ask about it. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Have a good time.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Catherine Tattersfield. I'd like to speak general public comment and on item 2.
I have 1 minute for your item and 1 minute for general public comment.
I echo the prior statements about neighborhood council intimidation on behalf of the city attorney's office. I've personally been to 2 different Northridge neighborhood council meetings, and I understand that a Porter Ranch neighborhood council meeting was canceled or a motion was removed from the agenda because of the deputy city attorney's office reaching out and threatening those council members, those board members with, liability and lawsuits and all this stuff simply for asking for transparency of their own neighborhood council, Los Angeles City Council Representative John Lee. John Lee has not been open with the public. He has not answered questions. He's issued 2 tweets on an FBI investigation that he was clearly part of based on his tweets. It sounds like he was staffer B. I think it is absolutely in the purview of local neighborhood council boards to just ask him questions. I see no reason why the city attorney's office is trying to... My general public comment is that the city attorney's office should not be interfering with neighborhood councils seeking transparency from their own city council representative, John Lee. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Goody. I would like to speak on item 200963, agenda item number 2.
You have 1 minute. You may begin.
Hi, I am from the Mid-City Neighborhood Council, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself since we did not have ample time to make a board action regarding this item, but I expect we will be issuing a CIS. Our main concern is we think, vote by mail could be a great thing, but we're concerned about disenfranchisement of our stakeholders, particularly those that are experiencing homelessness and do not have ample access to mail. When this was brought up to the city clerk, the representative stated that most homeless people have a P.O. box. And I'm not an expert in homelessness, but I feel like that is just categorically untrue and was a flippant answer to provide. I yield my time.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Yes, this is Patty Glick from CD12, and I'll do a public comment.
Great. You have 1 minute for your general public comment. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. I'm calling into question that an attorney from the city attorney's office can be interfering with neighborhood councils from discussing and passing motions asking for an ethics investigation into possible ethics violations on the part of our council member. There's been intimidation, there's been pulling of motions, and I think this is totally unacceptable because this is our representative. And we just found out after the election that he went on this trip, and we want the Ethics Commission to investigate him, and we want our neighborhood councils to truly be able to represent us. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which item you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Kate Gardner. I'm speaking on item number 1.
You have 1 minute for your item. You begin.
I strongly encourage that the All Black Lives Matter mural becomes a permanent installation. Black culture and LGBTQIA culture is essential to Hollywood, so I believe that we should keep the installation up and offer our support permanently to a community that's the cornerstone of our city. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
My name is Pilar Chiavo. I'd like to speak on general public comment and item 2.
You have 1 minute for your item and 1 minute for general public comment. You may begin.
Hi. So I regularly attend neighborhood council meetings in CD12. I've attended at least 3 of them in the last month. And the city attorney's guidance on whether neighborhood councils can comment on John Lee's involvement in the Englander indictment has led to mass confusion. I've heard neighborhood council board members claim guidance from the city attorney that has turned out not to exist. I've heard board members threaten other board members that the members of the members of the public with potential defamation suits. I've heard board members threaten other board members and members of the public with charges of obstructing an FBI investigation. The reason for all of this is confusion, and threatening behavior stems from the city attorney's office and the deputy city attorneys, in addition to Mike Fear's leadership, and arbitrary determinations on what can be and cannot be said, acted upon, or discussed with regards to Councilmember Lee. The city attorney's office should immediately stop.
General public comment.
Okay. I believe that the city attorney's office should immediately stop stifling neighborhood councils' discussion on this matter, or I'm afraid the chilling effect of neighborhood councils and members of the public will result in First Amendment violations. No one should feel censored by or feel that their constitutional right to free speech is being restricted by the city attorney's office, especially when these limits seem capricious and arbitrary. We need to lift the Lee gag order. And in terms of the elections, these are volunteers who are running for neighborhood councils. What is the point of running? And what is the point of trying to be local government and leading your local community if you cannot take positions on city hall corruption and things that are essential and central to residents and stakeholders having a voice in our community and in our district? Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Gerald Darth. I'd like to speak to item number 1, 200774.
Great. You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Yes, council members, I'd like to strongly urge your support for the permanent decorative street art on Hollywood Boulevard in this year's historic All Black Lives Matter March. This design will ensure that Black LGBTQ plus people remain visible for generations to come. I was actually the lead organizer of the All Black Lives Matter March, and we recognize the power of collaboration and us coming together in order to speak to a much needed visibility effort for underserved and represented communities, and being able to serve as an outlet and a light for the rest of the country and the world is a great opportunity for the city of Hollywood. And I also like to thank Councilmember Mitchell Farrell and his team for their leadership, and I hope the committee will approve all the necessary funding to make sure that this permanent installation is a success. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Barry Allen, number 2 in general comment.
You have 1 minute for your item and 1 minute for general public comment.
My name is Barry Allen. I'm visually impaired 100%, and I've contacted Dunn regarding voting by mail on how I could be accommodated. They've told me to contact the city attorney's office. City attorney's office tells me to contact Dunn. It's a problem. I would like to know how I can be accommodated for being visually impaired if it's vote by mail only. As to my public comment, for the past 7 months, I've been paying someone to put the agenda in a Braille form so I am able to read it. Dunn refuses to address the issue. They say I have to keep contacting the board, and the board's supposed to do something. The board members have been trying to help me to provide it, but they said Dunn won't respond back, and they keep contacting the city attorney and so forth. I would like to get some clarification where I'm just tired of paying for the agenda to be put in Braille, and I just want to get a reasonable accommodation. That's all I'm asking for, and I'm just being abused on this. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, this is David Wheatley. I'd like to speak on general plus 1 and 2.
2 minutes for your items and 1 minute for general public comment. You may begin.
Great, thank you very much. I live in the Silver Lake area, and I support a lot of what the BLM movement stands for, but I also am very much opposed to the use of public funds that discriminate on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, or any of the other protected classes. I think this project is probably worthy, but I think it should be funded privately. So I urge you to turn this down until there is a plethora of other projects that recognize Brown Lives Matter and every other kind of lives. Let's also remember that the Black Lives Matter marches turned into extreme violence and arson. So I think this group is not quite ready to be taking on the kind of whatever authority that it's assuming. So I urge you to vote no on this, please. Second item is neighborhood council elections. We need to prove that people are actually stakeholders. We had problems in Silver Lake, or allegations that people were being the equivalent of bussed in. So that absolutely needs to be fixed. Please let me know when the general comment starts.
Your general public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got a serious problem with the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council on the Zoom meetings where 3, 4, and sometimes 5 people are putting political signs up in front of their faces and keep them up for the entire meeting, even on agenda items where the political comment sign seems to me to have nothing to do with what's being discussed. I've asked that these be taken down. We're not able to adequately identify that the people behind the scenes are who they say they are, but they're voting and they're speaking up. So I urge Dunn to take a stand on this, or the city attorney's office, to make sure that these signs come down. I realize they're freedom of speech issues, but there's also transparency and identification concerns, and I ask you to intervene in this situation, as I've been getting nowhere with it, and I think it's really important and it's outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is George Anderson. I'd like to speak on the All Black Lives Matter 200774. Hi, I'm a gay citizen.
Yeah, 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Oh, thanks. Hi, my name is George Anderson. I want to speak to All Black Lives Matter, number 200774. I'm a gay citizen living in Hollywood and actually helped paint the installation, which caused such joy across the city, state, and country. The LGBTQ community joining forces with Black Lives Matter is a moment in history. Right now, the time is right. It sends a strong message of unity for the Hollywood community as well as the world. With John Lewis passing and Kamala Harris being our first Black vice president candidate, the message is so important right now. It's now Hollywood's newest landmark and a tourist attraction. Please vote yes to keep this installation. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Kelly Anderson, and I would like to comment on item 1.
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
I just wanted to call in and ask for the council's support in making the All Black Lives Matter a permanent installation on Hollywood Boulevard. I was part of painting it originally, and I work in the building on the same block, and I think it would be a great moment, and it's wonderful to keep it, and I hope that we can have it stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
My name is Zach Bollett from CD12, and I'd like to speak on general public comments.
You have 1 minute for your general public comment. You may begin.
Yeah, I was calling. I'm a member of the West Hills Neighborhood Council Board of Directors. I'm calling as an individual, but I need to echo what other callers have previously stated, that the city attorney's guidance with relation to sort of arbitrarily picking agenda items off of neighborhood councils is having a really chilling effect on the discourse. People are threatening, I heard one the other day about threatening obstruction of FBI investigations, and none of these people are lawyers or work in the city attorney's office, but they're using the city attorney's guidance to muffle any kind of discussion that they don't like. We had a member of our own board who claimed that we couldn't submit a CIS on a council file from the city about Weezar's indictment under this city attorney guidance.
Time's up. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Marina Paganucci, and I work in Hollywood near the Black Lives Matter art installation. So I'm calling about item number 200774, number 1. I'd like to...
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Thank you. Sorry again, my name is Marina Paganucci, and I'd like to comment on item number 200774, number 1. I would like to request the council supports the Black Lives Matter installation as a permanent public art in Hollywood. This is an important time for the LGBTQ Black community, and this installation brings awareness to people not just in LA but globally as well. And I think this would be an important installation to keep permanently. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Sharon Brewer, public comment, and then I would like to do 2, but can I wait until you actually end up going and coming to the agenda item?
This is the time for public comment, so you would need to comment right now.
All right, so then I guess I end up doing 2, but...
So I'll give you 1 minute for item number 2 and 1 minute for general public comment. You may begin.
Public comment, I would like the committee on May 28, 2020, you approved Council File 18-0467 on the NC system reforms update about the uniform age for voting and board participation, optional use seat, and the community interest stakeholders definition. With the elections coming up, this needs to go to City Council. I don't understand why it hasn't gone to City Council yet, but can you please move this, since it was approved back in May, the end of May, to City Council for approval, please. It impacts a lot of neighborhood councils and their current bylaws. On agenda item number 2, the elections, NC elections, vote by mail. This never went to any neighborhood councils for their input, review, comments. There are problems, especially stakeholders without internet access, having to mail in paper applications and submit documentation by mail at their own expense. And it's just, the main thing is they think everything can be done online, and it can't. People don't have access. Libraries may not be open. So, and this needs to be delayed and go back to neighborhood council so they have enough time to weigh in and help give suggestions or remedies for problems that are being seen. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Tess Taylor. I would like to make one general comment and one specific on item number 2, please.
You have 1 minute for your item and 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin with your item comment.
Thank you. Again, my name is Tess Taylor. I'm the President Pro Tem of the West Toluca Lake Residents Association. I'm extremely active in the area, and my general comment is that these Zoom virtual meetings are fundamentally flawed. Perhaps they're the best we can do right now, but we can still do better. They are not enabling interaction with our elected representatives. You just told moderator, one of the last callers, that she needs to comment right now and that she cannot comment again when the agenda item comes up. This goes against what we're here to do in a republic. There's no opportunity for us to direct our representatives, and we did not elect you to decide for us. We elected you to represent us, and that's what a republic is. It's a representative democracy. So I'm a little concerned about the overtaking of Zoom meetings and the ability to mute and unmute someone, take the call, not take the call, cut them off, and being limited to 1 minute. I know there are practical reasons for this, but I urge the council to please review, update, and improve this process. It's not very good government. And now to my agenda item, please. Agenda item number 2 on the item of mail-in voting. I wonder what the actual purpose of DONE is. The acronym stands for Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. This seems to be disempowering. And are the neighborhood councils even taken seriously anymore? Are we merely to be notified, or do we get meaningful input which requires time and outreach to the people? There's been no time given for review and comment of this. I got this item this morning by email from a private individual. So I wonder what the rush is to push this vote by mail initiative through. What is the good government justification, please? It's not needed that we rush this. And have the neighborhood councils even been surveyed? I don't think they have. I would be happy to assist the council with a mailing list that's twice as large as my local neighborhood council's mailing list to put out 1 or 2 questions and ask people their opinion, feedback, and comment. Transparency and thoughtful policy making are urgently needed now more than ever. Please stop the rush to make decisions for us. This is not appreciated, and we need to have input. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hall. I would like to speak on item number 2.
You have 1 minute for item number 2. You may begin.
Yes, my name is Jamie Hall. I am the president of the Laurel Canyon Association, and I'm also the vice president of legislative affairs for the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. It's kind of shocking that the city is considering this without having even sent this notice to the neighborhood councils for their input and consideration. And And so I would ask that you postpone this to seek the input from the neighborhood council. Clearly, we're a constituency that should be consulted. And also, this is a core democratic function. And so the justification provided by the city clerk, that it's just not enough resources and funding problems is not a sufficient justification for undermining a core democratic function. So please do not take any action on this item, and at least allow the neighborhood councils 30 days to opine.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hello?
Yes, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I'd like to speak on item number 2 and general public comment.
What was your name?
My name is Cindy Cleghorn. I'm from San
You have 1 minute for item 2 and 1 minute for general public comment. Please with the comment for item.
Thank you very much. For item number 2, I'd like to make 4 points. One has to do with the data collection that the city clerk will have. I'm concerned with that and would like that to have more research and investigation to make sure that it's secure. Also, the polling site, I believe that there should be 1 polling site at least per region in the election, not just all vote by mail. That's a suggestion. I think that you should look into the Los Angeles County system for their town councils. They offer voting over extended several days. It might be something to look into as another alternative. And I also agree that the extension for neighborhood councils to weigh in on this report should be extended for at least 30 days for neighborhood councils. I'll now move on to my public comment. The Neighborhood Council Congress is virtual this year. Please save the date for September 26th at 9 a.m. And we look forward to all neighborhood councils participating that day. So join us on September 26th, 9 a.m. for a virtual Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I didn't ask to speak.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, Jackie. Item number 1.
You have 1 minute for your item.
Hello, I am calling to strongly urge the City Council members to make the All Black Lives Matter mural a permanent installation. As an ally, I feel that it represents being Black, sexual orientation, and gender identity that are included in the movement. I feel it speaks to the commitment our city has regarding inclusion and equality for the Black community, especially our queer and trans community. And I was involved in the original painting of the mural, and I felt that it brought together unity and a great spirit to the area. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Julia Walker, and I'm speaking on behalf of item 200774.
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Thank you. I'm part of the team who donated time to originally paint the mural on the streets of Hollywood Boulevard. I live and I work in Hollywood, and I strongly believe this should be a permanent installation here. I want to show our ongoing support for Black and LGBTQ rights, bringing together the community who obviously feel very strongly about these causes They're not temporary issues, and I think making it a permanent installation would reinforce that. And I strongly ask the council to please vote yes to keep the installation and make it permanent. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
No comment.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I am calling for 277 and 4. I think that's item number 1.
Yes, you have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
My name is Leticia Gonzalez Fuller, and I am the bride who got married on the mural. And I just want to say thank you in advance for making history. So I'm here to support. Hopefully you guys keep it there permanently. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chu and members of the Parks and Rec Committee. This is James Wen, and I'm here to speak on item 20774.
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is James Wen. I serve on the Transgender Advisory Council. I'm here representing myself. I would like to ask the committee to support the All Black Lives Matter creation and make it a permanent installation for public art to commemorate the All Black Lives Matter March that was held on Sunday, June 14, 2020. Art can be healing and transformative, and I think in this case, the mural does do that and has spread the message around the world, as the previous caller had indicated. I especially like that it is located at Hollywood and Highland. It's a metro station, a point of transit that when people are coming out, that would be one of the first things that we'll see. I know that when I saw the All Black Lives Matter mural, it really put a giant smile on my face. I felt included, not only as a trans individual, but I saw yellow and brown and purple and the rainbow colors. And regardless of what a prior caller had indicated not feeling included, I do feel that this particular mural included all the colors and all genders and orientation.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Jonathan.
State your name, which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Tansipe. I wanted to speak on item number 1.
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
Hi, I'm a resident of Hollywood, California. I live actually right down the street from the mural on DeLongpre. The installation of the mural brought such a sense of pride to the LGBTQ community, to the Black community, to the community of all colors. It really united all of us. I think that it's a great way to show and bring awareness, not only to the Hollywood area, the Los Angeles area, but also showing the world what we stand for, what we believe in. And I think that you guys should vote yes to keep it permanent. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Helena Chai. I'm about Mr. Lee. I don't know if it's public comment or you have an item.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lee is not part of the agenda.
Okay,
I can give
comment.
you 1 minute for general public comment.
Okay, yes. I would like Mr. Lee to be investigated by the Ethics Committee. I don't know why City Attorney LA is blocking all the calls for CD 12A, the Ethics Committee investigation. This item has been going on neighborhood council schedules and it's been taken off by city attorney offices. I don't understand what's neighborhood council if they cannot voice our opinions. I feel like Mr. Lee needs to be investigated by Ethics Committee. My name is Helen Nakai, by the way, from Granada Hills.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I already spoke. Thank you.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Alan Kumamoto, item number 2 regarding the elections.
You have 1 minute for your item. You may begin.
This is Alan Kumamoto, Arts District, Little Tokyo Neighborhood Council. We have not had a time to discuss this election by mail, so we would ask that you defer for at least a month any kind of action on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please say your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Glenn Bailey, general public comment, and also item number 2, council file 20-0963.
You have 1 minute for item number 2 and 1 minute for general public comment. Please begin with your item comment.
Okay, the neighborhood council elections, first of all, I want to acknowledge the city clerk did make a presentation at the LA Neighborhood Council Coalition meeting on Saturday, August 1st, that kind of gave a heads up to this. So we appreciate that. However, 2 days later, this report was submitted, and we were never notified by any of the parties involved, be it the clerk or Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. By we, I'm saying neighborhood councils and all of the board members. Secondly, so that's an argument for allowing time for neighborhood councils to weigh in this. Secondly, it seems like it's all or nothing. In 2014, the department essentially prohibited all vote by mail, which had been allowed in the past, unless you switch to a self-affirmation mode, which is contrary to half the neighborhood councils, which are documentation.
Please begin some your general public comment.
Yes. First of all, I think neighborhood councils do a better job of engaging the public than the city council is doing. The neighborhood council Zoom accounts include toll-free numbers for the public. They include the option for the public to join in by Zoom. At least they can see the panelists. And as was indicated by an earlier speaker, it just seems so undemocratic that we can't respond to the comments and the presentation made by the department and the board, because we have to give our comments before any of that ever happens. And it's very likely that what is said in the conversation, the interchange between the department and the council members may, in fact, generate some specific and constructive input to your body. So having us do this before we've even heard the item is contrary to what neighborhood councils do for its constituents, and I ask that you reconsider that procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I already spoke. Thanks.
Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
Yes, this is Charlene Rossing from the West Hills Neighborhood Council, and I
wanted to speak on item number 2.
You get 1 minute for item number 2. You may begin.
Thank you. If it wasn't for Glenn Bailey, our council would not even know about the strictly vote by mail. So thank you, Mr. Bailey. But I would like to reiterate what a lot of other people are saying. I am the co-chair for the elections committee, and we had absolutely no notification. So, and I also know, and I'm aware because I've been on the board for about 12 years, the problems that we had in the past with vote by mail for the registration online, problems with ID, not accepting ID online. There were many, many problems. So I would also ask at least for a minimum of a 30-day extension so that the neighborhood councils can weigh in and we could, not only weigh in on what we would like or not like, but also how to resolve some of these problems with remedies. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I did need to speak.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I'm Catherine Tattersfield. I already spoke, but I'm very happy to speak again.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on.
I'm Karina Samala, item number 1.
You have 1 minute for the item. You may begin.
Okay. My name is Karina Samala, and I am the chair of the Transgender Advisory Council. I'd like to strongly urge the council members to support a permanent decorative street design on Hollywood Boulevard in commemoration of this year's historic All Black Lives Matter March. How gratifying it was to see so many people that showed up, but that they came with willingness for an ongoing commitment to this important cause. Our community, especially here in Los Angeles, has faced many shocking crimes. It is crucial that we remain strong and united more than ever while still continuing our battle against ignorance, hate, and violence. The proposed permanent design will ensure that queer Black communities will remain visible for generations to come. And I thank Councilmember Mitchell Farrell for his leadership on this project. And I hope the committee will approve all necessary funding to make this project a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please state your name and which items you would like to speak on. Mr. Chair, that finishes public comment.
Great. That ends public comment, and so we will close public comment.
Goodbye.
Okay, that'll close public comment. Now, before I move on to the agenda, I do want to ask the city, the clerk, about. I was concerned about one of the callers who talked about who was vision impaired. What do we do for vision impaired individuals, especially during this time of COVID? What options do they have?
Mr. Would you like to have the agenda item called first?
Oh, that's not actually an agenda item.
Okay. I am committed. This is Holly Walcott, City Clerk. It is something that we're committed to working on.
Holly, I'm sorry. You know what? It's not pertaining to item number 2. I was just talking about this actual committee meetings for vision impaired individuals. This is not for voting. Sorry, I see where you're confused, Holly. Sorry about that. I was just asking our clerk, what does the City of LA, what do we do for agendas for vision impaired, especially since we're not meeting in the chambers? What options do we have?
Mr. Chair, the meeting is recorded and it's also being recorded by Council Audio. They can also listen to the meeting after the live meeting is over.
But as far as the agenda is concerned, you could download it electronically, but then to get it Braille, that is a concern, and I really want to thank the caller who called in for that. And we will, I will look into that additionally and report back at another time. But colleagues, going back on the agenda, if there are no objections, I want to recommend that we move items 3 through 13 on consent. That's seeing there's no objections to that. Mr. Clark, would you please take a vote on these items?
Certainly, sir. Councilmember David Rue?
Yes.
Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Karen Price?
Aye.
It's moved, sir.
Thank you. Moving along to item number 1. Mr. CLA, can you please read the item into the record, please?
Sure. Item number 1, Department of Cultural Affairs report and motion, O'Farrell Price, relative to the installation of a permanent public art in Hollywood and commemoration of the All Black Lives Matters March, Sunday, June 14th, 2020.
Thank you. And I want to really thank Councilmember O'Farrell and the Department of Cultural Affairs for bringing this item forward, because we are at an inflection point in the city of Los Angeles and nationwide. And we have an opportunity before us not only to reimagine public safety, but to acknowledge some of the horrendous wrongs committed in our city and across our country, and to acknowledge the systems and structures of racism that have persisted and correct those wrongs. And public art alone, including the mural dedicated to Black Lives Matter that we installed at the Laugh Factory, next to the Laugh Factory in Council District 4, does not end racism. But they do serve a crucial role for a catalyst for change. And the hurdles and hardships that people of color in America disproportionately experience, and the work that we need to do to right those wrongs. So I want to thank you again, Mr. O'Farrell. And at this point, I want to kick it over to you. And I know you want to make some opening remarks, and then we also have Felicia Filer from the Department of Cultural Affairs who can walk us through the report. But Mr. O'Farrell, floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and colleagues, for scheduling this item and allowing the opportunity to say a few words about this, as you mentioned, important and meaningful opportunity for us to memorialize that historic march that took place back in June. All Black Lives Matter is about bringing visibility to queer people within the Black community. And as Lucky and as Gerald, you heard them in the public comment period. My office worked very closely with them. We painted the decorative street installation together the day before that historic march took place. And all the other callers calling into support, thank you for voicing your support for this permanent installation that we're discussing here. 2020 has already seen at least 26 transgender or gender nonconforming people fatally shot or killed by other violent means across the country. We say this at least because too often these stories go unreported or misreported or even misgendered in the reporting. I've dedicated my time in office to help make visible the transgender community through my work with the Los Angeles Transgender Advisory Council and a multitude of collaborative efforts with LGBTQI+ organizations and leaders. And I also want to thank Karina Samala, who is the chair of the Advisory Council, for being with us in this effort. After years of this advocacy, what I see time and again is the brutal reality that queer people of color, and specifically Black transgender women, face unimaginable hardships as they seek to live their best lives authentically while being deprived of the necessities that we all have access to, including housing, employment, health care, among the most, I think, marginalized of all demographics. Too often, their lives are tragically ended by transphobic, homophobic, or racist individuals. Last year, advocates tracked at least 27 deaths of transgender or gender nonconforming people in the U.S. due to fatal violence, the majority of whom were Black transgender women. Knowing this and knowing that the nation is now rising towards social justice as never before in my own lifetime, I joined with the Black LGBTQ plus activists for change, known as BLAC, BLAC, who led the All Black Lives Matter march, denouncing racial injustice and supporting LGBTQ rights. This was a very different march up until that date. It was approximately 40,000 individuals there for standing up for the rights of LGBTQ people of color, uniting. And it was an amazing, completely peaceful march that came on the heels of our 50-year anniversary of the first authorized gay rights march at the same location 50 years ago. When my office was contacted by a local stakeholder, the Trailer Park Group, we knew that by painting the words "All Black Lives Matter" on Hollywood Boulevard, in conjunction with the mission of the All Black Lives Matter March and the organizers that I mentioned previously, it would speak to the heart of the city and the soul of the nation, and indeed it did. The images were broadcast across the world even before anyone stepped foot for the march. And so that image has gone viral, and it really did help further and expand our understanding of racial inequality and racial justice. So I want to thank BLAC, BLAC, for being the heart and soul of this operation. Yet today, years after the senseless massacre of the LGBT community at Pulse nightclub, after the unknowable amount of deaths facing our trans community nationally and locally, there is not one memorialized space in Los Angeles dedicated to the lives of transgendered people of color until now. As the site of the first nationally recognized gay pride parade, as I mentioned, in the nation, in Hollywood, 50 years ago, California, Hollywood, Los Angeles must be and will be the safe space designated for this landmark distinction. Today, with the support of this committee, we have the opportunity to forever memorialize the historic All Black Lives Matter March and transgender people of color on Hollywood Boulevard. And as you said, Mr. Chair, we've got Felicia Filer, who is helping guide us through this process. And so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Felicia to go over the report.
Thank you, Councilman. Good afternoon, committee members. Felicia Filer, Director of Public Art for the Department of Cultural Affairs. We were included in the motion to work with the Council Office 13, the organization BLAC, as the council member just described, and Hollywood stakeholders to determine how we could make the All Black Lives Matter text a permanent installation in Hollywood Boulevard in the vicinity of the original march. The temporary painting that was installed on June 14th was intended to be up for roughly 1 month, until July 13th. But in the interim weeks following the march, it was decided that there was, and the council office wants to make this a permanent installation. So we convened a meeting with council office representatives, DOT staff to identify locations, as well as members of BLAC. To discuss the constraints of making this a permanent installation. And at the meeting, the designer, Lucky Alexander, who you've heard from, actually presented a number of designs at different intersections that were up for consideration. And in that meeting, we learned that Lucky, whose training is a professional graphic designer, that we're really treating this as a large graphic treatment. And in so doing, the city is not encumbered with copyright issues or any of these sort of IP rights that affect or are that are affected by visual artists and public art. So that is why the description in our recommendation has changed from calling this public art to decorative street paving treatment. And this is particularly important as it relates to any sort of future maintenance or street repairs that may have to occur at that location, that the city is free to respond quickly and not be encumbered by some of the IP rights that come along with public art. At a subsequent meeting at the end of June, Lucky and Black and DOT staff and Cultural Affairs, we met with members of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and the Hollywood Bid Group. We presented the designs and the locations to everybody. We had really robust conversations, answered a lot of questions, mostly of a technical nature, and concluded with full support to move forward with the permanent installation. There was also a discussion about, how to create some sort of a community engagement process and whether or not community volunteers could help paint the new design. But given the technical nature of the material that's going to actually have to be utilized to install this work permanently, it was decided that it's better to have a professional street paving company actually prepare the image. So the street paving company has been identified. The council office has identified $20,000 in council civic fund to pay for design and installation services. And we are scheduled to begin the de-installation of the temporary text at the end of this month on August 25th and begin repainting the new installation at the permanent location on October 28th and 29th. And once the image is painted, then we will come back to council with some recommendations on the maintenance needs for this image. We are told by the paint company that the material should last for roughly 5 to 7 years, but we want to look at the different types of maintenance that may be required. Street services has to go out and make repairs versus 7 years if the work starts to fade, and to get a sense of what are the possibilities to maintain the work beyond the 5 to 7 years. And so we'll come back to council with our findings after the image is up. I don't know if the representative from DOT is here to talk about, to answer any questions about the street and the location in the event that the committee has questions about that.
Thank you, Ms. Filer. Is anyone from DOT prepared to discuss and explain the process from your perspective in terms of what is there temporarily right now and what will replace that permanently?
Greg Spots is here from Streets LA representing Transportation and Public Works for this.
Okay, Mr. Spots, if you could.
Good afternoon, thank you. And I know all of us at Streets LA and LA DOT are excited about the opportunity to help facilitate the proposed project. The project has been, the permanent design has been developed in close consultation with both LA DOT and Streets LA to locate it in a part of the street that doesn't have a lot of vehicular traffic. It's in the sort of center area of the street on either side of a mid-block crosswalk. That area also would be less likely to have utility cuts in it than if it were in the intersection, say. We helped find a vendor and a product that we're very familiar with. It's a product that has been used for decorative crosswalks and other purposes. And also we've been using it lately as a cool pavement coating. So we're very familiar with the contractor and the product. It's been used in Los Angeles a number of times. It has lasted 5, 7, even up to 10 years in some locations. It sort of gradually fades. We'll be able to keep tabs on it. The process for the whole project takes about 6 days, 6 work days. In the first 3 work days, we would remove the K-rail that's currently protecting the temporary mural. We would use a milling machine to grind off just a very, very thin layer of the riding surface to remove the existing temporary mural. We would then slurry seal the street to give it a nice clean appearance. Then on the fourth day, LIDOT would come and reapply the striping. And then on the fifth and sixth days, our contractor would come and install the permanent decorative paving treatment.
Thank you so much, Greg. And just to be clear, this is Lucky's design, which will go back for the permanent treatment with the same colors, which are the transgender flag colors, and all Black Lives treatment that you currently see will become permanent in the center lane. Part of this project also includes the installation of a street sign of All Black Lives Matter that will say, March for All Black Lives and Black LGBTQI plus rights dedicated to transgender people of color, June 14, 2020, the historic date that this march occurred, also in the direct vicinity of where the temporary installation currently is. And I just wanted to state that because I don't have images that I can show folks who are listening, but we'll certainly provide those in my e-newsletter or my social media channels. And I'm sure DCA will as well. I really want to thank DCA and Bureau of Street Services and Department of Transportation on helping bring this together, along with, of course, Gerald and Lucky and the entire Black organization. Last question, are there any other authorities from any other departments that we need in order to move forward and complete this project that either of you are aware of?
No, I think we have everything articulated in the motion. Our instructions to we have what we need to get started. Thank you, Councilman.
We have what we need. Great. Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is a real example of the community, the organization coming together in this time so that we can, in record speed, dedicate a memorial, permanent presence of the historic march that took place on June 14th. Nothing like this has taken place of this magnitude anywhere else, and it's really quite wonderful that this message emanates from Hollywood, the heart of Los Angeles, and the district that I am so proud to represent. So thank you. And colleagues, with that, I ask for an aye vote so we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Farrell. Councilman Price, yes.
Yeah, just let me add, first of all, appreciate you, Mitch, for your leadership on this issue. I'm honored to present this with you. In fact, you and I walked a couple blocks that day, as I recall. It was a monumental march, and it was a great outpouring of community pride. And so I think this is an exciting way to commemorate that on an ongoing basis. Appreciate the city family stepping up, stepping in, and being a part of history as we really signify what's possible in our community. So again, thank you, Mitch. Appreciate your leadership on it, and I'm excited to join you.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and it was wonderful marching with you that day and representing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Price. And since there's no other questions, I do want to recommend that we approve this motion as per direction of Councilmember O'Farrell, and DCA report before us and move the item along to the council. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, sir. Councilmember David Drew.
Aye.
Councilmember Micho Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Karen D. Price.
Aye.
The item is approved, sir.
Thank you. Let's move along to item number 2. Mr. CLA, if you could read that item into the record, please.
Yes, sir. Item number 2, City Clerk report relative to the conduct of the neighborhood council elections during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Great. And on this call, we have Holly Wolcott, the city clerk, Raquel Beltran, general manager of Dunn. And Holly, I want to, if you could walk us through the report and recommendations. I know there's a lot of concerns, including a lot of the members ourselves, but if you could walk us through the report and the recommendations before us.
Thank you, Chairperson Rue. Holly Wolcott, City Clerk, City of LA. First of all, the report in very basic terms addresses a fork in the road where we find ourselves due to the pandemic. And that is whether we conduct the elections for the neighborhood councils in the spring of 2021 by mail, or do we do it in person? As the report points out, we do, as the funding is available, we do not have the funding to do both. So just as sort of a background on how we got here, during the budget deliberations for this year, and as everybody remembers, it was during the pandemic, but I think at that time, most of us were pretty optimistic that the pandemic would be over sooner rather than later. We're now faced with a different reality. So during the budget deliberations, the neighborhood council elections were not funded. It was not until the final financial status report of the CAO late in the fiscal year that the neighborhood council elections were funded. At this time, outreach has not been funded. So I'll address that in a second. But so where we are is we have enough time and staff to plan for one or the other. So we're in the initial planning stages. We're at, if you will, a skeleton. So this is where, once this decision is made, then we start fleshing out some of the concerns that people have. But we cannot wait to have all the answers to decide which direction we're going to go. We simply have to make a decision, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the pandemic. So we would have more time to say, okay, is somebody give more money from the neighborhood councils, even though, as we also know, because of the pandemic, we're also in a fiscal crisis. So we have to stretch the dollars as far as we can. What we're suggesting is that the city clerk run the neighborhood councils administratively as a vote by mail. And yes, outreach is a concern. I take very seriously Mr. Allen's concern about those with challenges or disabilities, that we make sure that there are abilities to reach the homeless, that there are abilities to reach those that do not have computer access. Now is the time that we need to reach out and start fleshing that out with the neighborhood councils. It was never the intent to shut the neighborhood councils out. It was simply a matter of timing on where we are at the time. So my recommendation would be to adopt the report as it's written, and then any other recommendations you would like as far as report backs. We are committed to working with the neighborhood councils to flesh out their concerns. And as far, now let's get to the outreach portion. As I believe, I can't remember which spoke about the division between the city clerk and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, but let me help a little bit in that, and that is the administrative portion of the elections are run by the city clerk, and outreach is run by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Now, Raquel does not have any funding at this point. What I will suggest, but I can only recommend, that if we find savings in the election budget for the November city election, that we recommend a portion of that go to, there are one or two items that we may still need, but that those items be considered for done outreach. That would, of course, require a vote by the city council, and we do realize that there are, we're in a really bad budget year, and, I don't know what other competing, priorities the city will have, but that would be my recommendation. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Holly. Does Raquel Beltran, do you want to add anything?
Good afternoon, council members. This is Mike Fogg from the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. As Holly has mentioned, thank you, council member. Good afternoon. The Department of Neighborhood Empowerment is going to be working closely on leveraging our resources to do outreach. We've convened regional outreach gatherings with all the outreach chairs across the different neighborhood council regions. In collaboration with the city clerk, we'll be coordinating communications and really sending out information on how folks can get engaged in the neighborhood council elections, how they can be involved, and how they can sign up and vote. and we'll be working hand in hand and working closely with the Office of the City Clerk. And we appreciate the City Council and the Mayor's proposed budget earlier this year, where $450,000 was previously allocated to help with outreach, but as we heard from our City Clerk, the funding is no longer there due to the tough budget times of the pandemic. And our department's prepared to come back with a strategic plan by September to look at how we can really best utilize the vote by mail process and to engage all the neighborhood councils in the upcoming election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Holly, for that overview. And you know, when this was first asked to be agendized in the committee, I was also very concerned of, especially with like a lot of the neighborhood council members who called in. But thank you for making it absolutely clear. But we have to move this forward today. However, this does not preclude us from actually, like you said, flushing out all the details. Right, Holly?
That is correct, and that's the direction we would like to go in. We would like to work with the various groups that we know are out there. I've heard that Lank has put together from an email from Terrence Canopes this morning that they have a working group that they have specifically put together, but we don't want to limit it to just that group. We've had a working group on other aspects of the election on how we can do things better, but we also need to work with the neighborhood councils, especially regarding those issues that a lot of the speakers brought up. And again, that would be the homeless, reaching the homeless, outreaching to those without computers, and those without mailboxes. We would have drop-off boxes. We do have various methods of managing those type of things, but we would like to hear the ideas of the neighborhood councils themselves. And it was just not feasible to plan both ways of voting and flesh them both out and then make a decision. We need to make the decision first.
And obviously, because of the pandemic prolonging, this is why we're in this situation to begin with. But I want to be clear, once we make this decision, technically in the next couple of weeks or in the next month, if we also did want to do live voting in addition to vote by mail, could that be a possibility? But of course, there's a huge funding matter, right? But if funding wasn't a problem, could that also possibly be included?
We could report back on what it would cost.
Yeah, great. And I just want to, and I do have a couple more questions, and I know my colleagues do too. But I do want to say, you know, when it comes to vote by mail and online voting, which we already were looking into, and I know you were, we did pilot projects, we have various opt-ins, we had successful elections, and we had elections that had lots of problems, which we learned from. And that is something I support, and that is something that we're all moving towards. Federal elections, municipal elections, you name it, and I saw that as the future for neighborhood council elections as well. However, obviously, this is not opportune. We would have wanted additional ample time to vet through all those issues and make it more perfect. But we are pretty much like many other things, just forced in this situation. So, Holly, can you again provide us with the actual timeline and more specifically, why does this vote have to happen today? And yeah, that question first.
In order to give us time, if you back off from, start with when the elections start, and a city clerk or any voting entity will consider the day that filing opens for candidacy to be when the election actually starts. Well, under the current timeline of a spring of 2021 election, the timeline begins in November, because that's when candidate filing begins. So we now have only September, October. We have 2.5 months to do any planning and any programming. So any loss of time causes us to not have time to program any systems programming or to flesh it out with the neighborhood councils.
Okay. Secondarily, can you give us a timeline? So once this vote is taken, can you give us a timeline of the build-out for the VBM system, and then, of course, the timeline for the outreach and education that's going to be conducted, and from that outreach and education, some of the feedback that comes in, when that would be looped into the VBM, and then voter registration deadlines, and when the ballot submissions cut off. So if you give us the whole timeline on that.
I'm going to have to turn that question over Sophia or Jenny, who I believe are also on the call.
Hello, good afternoon, council members. This is Sophia Anguiano with the City Clerk's Office. In regards to timing, we've actually already begun the process of developing a vote-by-mail application, an online vote-by-mail application. The timeline we are still working out, and that is where we will ask NC board members to provide us with input. We have our general timeline of when candidate filing begins. That would not change, so that would begin in November of this year. But in terms of when we begin taking vote-by-mail applications, that usually is about 30 days before Election Day, so we would provide a longer period for voting. And again, we're committed to working with the neighborhood council elections. We just want to receive approval to begin this development, and during these stages is when we're going to be bringing in neighborhood council leaders to help us in the development.
Great, thank you, Sophia, and I think you pretty much answered the question, but I want to just make it absolutely clear. So when it comes to the first thing that needs to be done is the vote-by-mail application. So will there be an opportunity for neighborhood councils to see it and make suggestions to you regarding the vote-by-mail applications as well as all the other steps before it even goes out?
Absolutely, and so the vote-by-mail online application would be the same as what we used in 2019 in order to verify voters, whether stakeholders qualify to vote and which ballots they would be issued. So it's not going to look different. It's something that anybody who participated in previous elections will be familiar with, but absolutely, we will provide that to neighborhood councils so they could provide comment and feedback.
Do you know roughly when that deadline would be for the feedback to be submitted to you in order for consideration?
We're currently in the development stages of all of the applications as well as the process and timeline. So we expect that in the next month we'll be debuting the draft plan of what the vote-by-mail application will look like as well as what the timeline will look like. We will also develop an election manual that will provide detail on what this plan would look like, that we will provide to all NC board members for feedback and comment so that we're able to finalize this process by September.
By September. So September will be the finalized plan.
That's what the goal is.
Early September, mid-September roughly?
Later September. We understand that we need time to develop our process. This is unprecedented. We've never done this before for all 99 neighborhood councils, so we need time to develop it. And then we also need to provide time for NC board members and stakeholders to provide their feedback, as well as city attorney and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment.
Okay, great. So roughly, neighborhood councils have about possibly 30 days to give you their input and consideration.
I think the deadline's a little fluid right now. I would say a little longer than that. I want to provide them with enough time to provide us with feedback once we develop that process. So I don't want to limit it to 30 days at this point. I think we first need to develop the process, and then we would see how long it would take to receive feedback and incorporate the suggestions into our process.
But we can guarantee them a minimum of 30 days.
Yes.
Great. And can you kind of walk us through I know you're going to have an education and outreach component, but you talked about a committee that you're already creating. Besides that committee, what other avenues will neighborhood councils be able to review all these documents as well as submit to you? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Sure. So what we've done in the past and what we are committed to continuing to do is we developed a work group after the 2019 election made up of 25 stakeholders throughout the city, and they helped us with incorporating suggestions to our various processes. So we want to include them in the decision making now. We also want to email the process to our election board members. And this is, again, what we did in 2019. We send them our election manual that lays out the process for conducting these elections. We intend to do the same for all neighborhood councils so that they can provide us feedback or comment on what suggestions they would like to make in the development and in the process of administering these elections.
Great. What about online voting? Has that been considered, or what's the cost implications there?
Currently, there is no vendor that offers, no vendor that we're aware of that offers an online voting portal. That could be quite extensive, as we would have to go out to bid. And as you may be aware, that could be quite cumbersome, and we just simply don't have the time. What we're doing now is that we're using city ITA staff, our system city clerk staff, and they are the ones that are developing this online application.
Okay.
So any discussion regarding online voting would have to be under consideration for 2023, and if that would be the direction of the committee, then we would start looking into what the possibility would be for 2023. But it is off the table for 2021.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Holly. You already actually, can you comment a little bit more on your thoughts on those who don't have access to a computer or is digitally challenged, as well as homeless residents? Because how if you have the answers right now. If you don't, we'll definitely hear it again later. But especially for homeless individuals, because I believe vote by mail, you need an actual mail. It needs to be a physical. It needs to be a home address. It can't be a PO box, right? So how are you going to get the ballots to individuals who don't have a mailing address?
So for those individuals, I'm sorry, Holly.
No, I wanted to give it to you.
Okay. So for that part, so I do want to stress that in 2019, we also had a candidate filing online application, and we also offered paper applications to those that did not have access to the internet. We also offered phone assistance to non-English speakers and helping them walk through the process of filing for candidacy. We intend to do the same in 2021 for not only candidates but also for voters. For the homeless population, that was a concern that was brought before us in the LA Coalition of Neighborhood Council meeting. We intend to work with the various homeless coalitions to try to reach that population. We're committed to reaching that population. As Holly mentioned previously, we want to have drop boxes available at throughout various city locations, so that if somebody doesn't have access to the mail, they can just drop off their voted ballot there. So again, this is all where we will be including as many community members as possible to make sure that we're being all inclusive for all Angelenos.
Great. Thank you for that. Mr. Price, do you have any questions?
Just want to underscore your comments, Mr. Chairman, about the importance of reaching our hard-to-reach constituents. And I think we're just all a little more sensitive to that, certainly notwithstanding the challenges surrounding the pandemic, but to reach out to our homeless neighbors and to figure out how we can engage them if they have an interest. I think one thing we don't want to overlook is the benefit of using community press. Obviously, community-based organizations, but community press, I think we should take a look at paid and unpaid press. But I think we ought to utilize our community newspapers perhaps in ways that we haven't, especially if we're talking about reaching our neighborhoods to get them to participate. So look forward to working with you and appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Price. And yes, and I want the public to know, and for those neighborhood council members who are on this committee hearing this, that especially for those hard-to-reach populations of homeless and digitally challenged, there will be opportunities for input to see how we could better reach out to them and make sure that they are also included in this process. So obviously, this situation is not ideal. While I support vote by mail, online, and all these new technologies, doing this in literally a span of a few months is not what we envisioned. But because of this coronavirus pandemic, this is something that needs to be moved forward. But I want to rest assured that all neighborhood councils will have an opportunity to put in their input. And I want to urge both the city clerk and Dunn to you've already started, but to go above and beyond to make sure we get as much input as possible in this new system. So I do have a couple of recommendations. I'm going to instruct Dunn with the assistance of the city clerk to report back in 60 days with the status update on the development and implementation of the Neighborhood Council election outreach and education program, and a mechanism to receive input from neighborhood councils related to the conduct of the 2021 elections. Holly and Mike Fong, I want to ask you guys, is 60 days too long? Should I say 30 days or 45 days? I want to make sure that we get this done.
I would say there was no harm in 30 days.
Okay, let's just say 30 days. All right, and the second instruction is, Mike, is that okay with you?
30 days sounds good. Thank you so much.
Right. And it would just be on a status update. And of course, the second one is instruct the city clerk with the assistance of Dunn to report back in 30 days with the plan to ensure residents experiencing homelessness, as well as those without a physical mailing address and/or internet access, are included in the department's outreach efforts and able to vote. Third is instruct the city clerk and Dunn to report back in 30 days any additional resources needed to effectively conduct outreach, education, and a successful vote by mail elections. And I also want to add a fourth. I want to instruct the city clerk and Dunn to report back in 30 days on the process and cost for in-person voting, as well as possibly online voting. I know, Holly, you said we can't do it for 2021, but if you could actually look into both of those one more time and just let us know on a report back what the feasibility and the cost would be. Okay, colleagues. Mr. O'Farrell had to drop off, but he was in support of this item going forward. But if there are no other questions or objections, seeing none, I want to recommend that we approve this item as amended. So, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, sir. Councilmember David Drew.
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell Parle. He stepped out. So, Councilmember Karen D. Price.
Aye.
So the item passed, sir. Approved as amended.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's all of it. But Mr. Clerk, do we have any additional business to take care of?
That clears the desk, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Price. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.